Welcome, welcome. Forgot to put the sunglasses on. We're good though, guys. Welcome to Lou TV for Wednesday night, talking some fancy elite slates that start tomorrow. As always, a good slate of games. I want to ask for your opinion on one thing, and then we'll get into the actual action here. Kind of Roto Grinders, Andrew. He was tweeting about like, "Hey, fancy elite, how come you're not? We have 4 games Thursday and Friday. How come this slate isn't Thursday, Friday?" Instead of like this combination that we got going on. Do you have a prep? We've seen both. At the beginning it was like just the weekday and then just the weekend, and now we've seen a little bit of both. So you have like a preference, or does it really matter to you?
I think I prefer a good slate of games to either specific one. I guess if I'm trying to go be a really bad degen with no like bankroll logic, then I guess I probably want it all on Thursday, Friday, so then I could either lose and re-up or just take my winnings and roll them into Saturday. Like that's the only downside, I guess. If it's like a weekend long slate, you can't really get in multiple games over the weekend.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I knew what Dan was getting at because I completely understand that it's probably the best in terms of business. DraftKings never does the Thursday combined and the Saturday.
Right.
They do the whole just Thursday period, but I think, for business, it's probably smarter, but it also could be smart just to have great games in general. So
right, it seems
I
here
don't
that
blame them
these
for
games
doing
are
that.
the one slate is all ACC and the other is all Big East. So
You mean American Atlantic or whatever they are? So I think the slates are good enough right now, and then they'll add. Obviously, Grant adds the Saturday slate or two when the day comes. But this Thursday night game, man, I'm upset. I'll be missing the first half at least because I'll be working. But we see Florida State with really their last shot to lose here this season against Louisville, part of this ACC slate, and probably the one that is the headliner. And then kind of what we talked about in pre-show, why I like Marquise Williams so much. We can talk about that. And then we have another one for me. Another hot topic for me is this Boston College Virginia Tech game. Something we have a good slate around to talk about with that. No Zach Toe today. Is it Toe or Tao, by the way?
I've always said in my head Tao, but
really, I've always said in my head Toe, but
I think you're probably right.
Probably, but maybe this is the one time I'm right here. First, let's go to the big boy game. Let's go to Florida State Louisville. They have some news coming out that Carlos Williams may not start. Jimbo Fisher said it's a coin flip, so Dalvin Cook would start if not for Carlos.
Is that what he really said?
He said it yesterday. I retweeted it. It's a coin flip.
How can you? How it's not like it's an injury, right? It's like it's not a coin flip whether or not he beat the crap out of a woman or whatever he did, right?
No, it's not a 50-50 shot that he beat the crap out of a woman. I think it's a mixture of him being like mentally not there, mixed with the fact that he was injured in the past, mixed with Dalvin Cook being a badass.
I don't think he's playing, man.
I bet you he's. What's that?
I don't think he's playing.
Carlos Williams? You don't think he's going to play, period?
Right.
Seriously?
Yeah, it seems like there's more and more information coming out about this, like, every few hours. Like, did you see that it might be a Title IX investigation now? Like, I don't think this is just going to go by the wayside. I mean, yeah, maybe he plays and they manage to, like, postpone for a couple weeks or something, but he's going down eventually.
I want to say that I saw another quote from Jimbo Fisher saying he will play.
All right. I'm saying I don't think he's going to play, even if Jimbo says he's going to play.
Oh, look at Andrew. All right. Well, really quick, I haven't seen this Title IX investigation stuff. Really quick, really quick. Jimbo says he will play, declines further comment. So that seems like a sketchy situation, Andrew. You bring that up. What is this Title IX investigation stuff that's going on around him? Just the fact that he's hit women or what?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read too much into it. Bruce Feldman tweeted out a couple hours ago that Carlos Williams could be subject to Title IX investigation. I mean, that just seems like something you never want to be investigated for because, man, it's all sorts of sticky. But I mean, especially with Pender out, I mean, it's entirely feasible that FSU decides that getting him in the lineup is more important than if he actually beat the hell out of a girl. Which is, I mean, it's not like they've ever made a decision like that before. So
Yeah, they've never made that decision before. With that being said, Dalvin Cook, either way, even if, let's say, Carlos Williams starts, let's say Andrew is wrong, Dalvin Cook at 5K on Fantasy Elite is a great option. I think you're looking at 10 to 15 easy touches, and we've seen how good he was. He had a legit game as the second running back against Syracuse. He came in after that Pender injury and stepped up nicely. He's the second running back now with Pender hurt still, I believe. So he's a great option for you there at 5K. Will Gardner is back and playing quarterback for the Cardinals, correct?
Correct. He looked pretty good against NC State, but I mean everybody does. So
yeah, he looked good, but it's also a nice confidence booster here. Will Gardner also gets Devontae Parker, obviously, for another game. He's been back for a couple of days or a couple of games now at this point. Do
you think Parker's #1 pick in the slate at 5K?
I think at 5K is the #1 pick. I just don't see how you can. The guy is awesome. There's no one on Florida State that's going to stop him. I mean, have you seen anything from Florida State to make you think that he's going to be slowed down? The guy is a top 2-round talent.
Right.
And because of that, I kind of like Will Gardner probably a little bit more on sites where he's not so expensive. At 18K, though, it's not too bad. What do you think at 18K? How do you like Will Gardner?
I don't think I'm going to reach for him, but if I decide to wait late on my quarterbacks and he's there and I have the cash, I'm fine with it. I think he's good for like 250 to 300 with a couple scores.
Yeah, I like Parker in this one. Parker and Gardner, I should say. Rashad Green and Jameis Winston, that combination, what do you think about them against the really, really stingy Louisville defense?
I think that Green's definitely fairly priced at 15K. He is one of the more expensive skill position players on the slate, but outside of Parker, if you don't get him, what other receiver would you really want? I guess you could argue Tyler Boyd, which is fine. Boyd's awesome, but Green. This seems like one of those games where it's going to be a close game. It's probably going to go in the fourth quarter, and Jameis is just going to be targeting Green all day long. Jameis, I don't know if Jameis puts up numbers that much better than some of the other quarterbacks on the slate that I could justify paying for him over those guys at 27K though. At 27, it's not unreasonable, but it seems like there's more value at some of the other options.
Yeah, and with Jameis going against, I know Jameis is good, obviously, but the Louisville defense, I'm not sure I want to pay up top quarterback price for that. I think you're right there. We can get to some of those other quarterbacks in a moment, but yeah, I think Gardner's an option. I think Devontae Parker is probably a top 2 pick. I think Dalvin Cook is a top 2 pick, and then I think probably a top 4 pick, I should say. And then Jameis Winston later round for me. I'm not sure I'm going to be in on him much. Carlos Williams for you is off the board. I'd probably lean towards that way as well, especially if he's not possibly even going to start at 14K. That's a whole lot of bankroll to go with. Other guys in this game, are you looking more towards Louisville receivers or maybe a second or third receiver from Florida State, maybe a guy like Travis Rudolph or Jesus Wilson? What are you thinking here on these other options in this game?
I think Jesus could provide a decent value. He seems like he gets worked into the game plan a lot more now than he did at the beginning of the year. Nick O'Leary always shows up in big games, it seems like, but he's very accordingly priced at 10,500. So I think it's tough. I think James Quick got hurt last game, so he's usually one of the top Louisville receivers, but I haven't seen any updates on him, but I haven't really gone looking either. But that's something I definitely look at because he left in the second quarter of their last game and didn't come back.
Yeah, and I think Eli Rogers ended up having a pretty good game.
Yeah.
So I think he's an option there at 10K. I think you're dead on with Nick O'Leary. He shows up in the big games, but appropriately priced. I'm thinking to save it away. Jesus Wilson, I'm going for. Travis Rudolph is an option, but that's like a last sort of pick option to me. Um, and then I mean, Gerald Christian can score a touchdown from here to like here and then, but not an option.
I know we alluded to it from the conversation we've been having, but did we specifically say that Pender's out? Because he's definitely out, right?
I want to double and triple check here really quick, but I'm pretty positive out. Yeah, I've seen a couple of tweets here. College Football Geek even says unlikely to play. And then I've seen other ones. Yeah, some beat writers from Florida State that I follow say he's out as well. So Pender out for this one. Good to triple check there. The running back situation for Louisville. Brandon Radcliffe has had very good games. Dominic Brown has stepped in and done some work. Do we have a clear cut number one guy for the Cardinals?
Yeah, the depth chart that was released last week had, in the past, Petrino's been releasing depth charts that have basically 4 guys or as the number one, but this week it was just Dyer. So, I mean, you could be screwing with us, but it seems like it's as clear as it's been all year that one guy is the guy in the Louisville backfield, and it's Dyer.
Michael Dyer. Interesting here. What's
5K.
I'm too impressed with this offense.
He looked great last game.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought I saw a really, really good game out of him. That is gonna be an option on other sites as well that I haven't even considered. I'll priced elsewhere, but 5K again. I probably like Cook more than him, but
really,
I am. I'm all about Cook, man. I like those Florida State running backs.
I get it.
Dyer's had one game. Like it's not like he's been this unstoppable force every time.
It's 5K and it's Michael Dyer. He's a legend.
He is a legend. Oh man, this is why we need the third person. We need Zach here to be that in between guy for us. Here's a really, really random question. Okay, do you know the Georgia Southern running back situation off the top of your head by chance?
No.
Okay, well, their second producing running back is Alfred Ramsby. Well, this is a dumb.
Did you meet him at the hall or something?
No. My question is, would you roll Dyer or Ramsby if you had an either or? It's irrelevant to Fantasy Elite, but on FanDuel and other sites that are on the surface.
I haven't done enough research on.
You don't know nothing about the Eagles?
All I know is that they're gonna beat Troy by 40 points.
Oh, it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be ugly. All right, so Dyer is also an option. Probably was that 2 or 3 legitimate 5K options in this first one for us, and maybe a quarterback and some receivers as well at the top. UNC Miami. I have Marquise Williams as my number 1 quarterback this whole week. I think that him being hot. I've written about him in the 5th quarter in my Monday night article. I just love quarterbacks that do it all. They run, they pass. Marquise has been super effective in both. I'm going to pull up Miami's stats here in a second here, but what are your thoughts on Marquise Williams and how he's been playing? I know you had some pretty definitive opinions on him in pre-show.
Right. I mean, I watched a good amount of the game last week, and it's undeniable that he's been a great fantasy performer in the last 3 weeks now with 2 50-point fantasy games before last week, and then he dropped 30 last week against Virginia. But I think while his ceiling's always high, his floor's kind of low too. I mean, he's probably a top 2 option on Elite, but I think he could be due for a bad game soon. They really struggled to move the ball last week against Virginia. He had 3 big plays, but besides that, they had plenty of 3-and-outs. He took huge hits and had to come out of the game at multiple times. So he's definitely dinged up. I mean, I guess everybody's dinged up at this point in the season, but there were a couple times where it looked like he wasn't going to be able to come back in the game. I mean, his ceiling's always high, but I think his floor is low too for this game.
Yeah, this Miami defense has been very good against the pass, but I'm one of those. I like to look deeper into these things. Cincinnati has been did very well against them. 355 yards, 3 touchdowns. You see Nebraska had 2 touchdowns and only 13 passes. One of those situations where they were running it like crazy. They didn't need to pass, so Tommy Armstrong just didn't. Even Freddie Knighton had a good game for Arkansas State, or a decent game at least. And then Louisville at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to put anything into that the first game of the season. They faced a couple teams that really just have not been anything to say or impressive offensively in the past. Virginia Tech, bad passing team. Georgia Tech threw it 7 times. Nebraska 13 times. Duke, I know you're not an Anthony Boone fan, right?
No. I wanted to be at the beginning of the year, but I don't know, man. That team sucks.
Yeah,
And I brought this up like this weekend. If they beat, is it Georgia Tech that beat them, or Miami beat them? Miami beat them, right? If they beat Miami, they could have been undefeated this year. Their schedule is an absolute joke.
Yeah, so I see a lot of these teams that really shouldn't do well against, that shouldn't do well against them, and Miami did great against them. So good for Miami to put up the kind of stats they need to against these bad teams, but I'm not going to go too crazy in the fact that they're like top 10 in like lowest yards per game allowed. It is kind of weird, it is scary if he's banged up, but I feel like he played all last year banged up as well. It's just kind of like his style of offense. But I certainly see what you're saying there. Now, is there a receiver I like in this group? No. Quinshon Davis has been extremely disappointing in 2014. Matt Collins had a huge game last week, but it was 2 70-yard touchdown catches. I don't think you can put any stock in anybody on the UNC other than Marquise Williams. Is there a hidden gem that I'm missing here in this offense, or no?
I think Hollins is fine. It's not like they're asking you to pay 13 or 1400 for 13 or 14 G's for him. Like at 9100, that's not bad. Granted, he needs big plays to make it happen, but I mean, if you have faith in Marquise to air the ball out, I would have faith in Hollins too.
Okay.
I wish that they just got Switzer 6 games. He's so amazing with the ball in his hands, but you just can't you can't really expect them to do that. So, I mean, he's incredibly high ceiling, incredibly low floor at 8,200. But I mean, if I've with a last round pick, I mean, I might roll with him just because he could put up like a 30-point game, no problem.
Yeah, I'm a big Switzer fan, but they don't consistently get him touches.
Yeah,
and it's surprising because he typically does very well. I mean, the guy was a punt returner last year for him, and would score. I think he had like 2 or 3 punt returns for touchdown in like the last 6 games for him. So
5
punt returns
on the year.
Jeez. So the guy is obviously electric, can run it. Miami side of the ball, a lot easier to look at because we know how bad UNC's defense is. Specifically, which guys are you looking at the most? And maybe a guy or two that unheard of or a little bit less heard of that you really like as well.
So, I mean, after we get past the like insane value plays like Parker, Cook, and Dyer, I guess depending on how much you like them as values, like Duke Johnson has to be like a top all-around play just because of how bad UNC's defense has been, how incredible he's been, and I mean they've been winning by just giving him the ball basically, and then letting Kea kind of feed off that. So, if you were to project a game for him this week, it's got to be like close to 200 and like 2 to 3 scores, right?
I would say Duke Johnson is good for 175 yards, a touchdown, 50 yards receiving on like 4 catches. I mean, that's like, to me, 3-4 catches, 40, 50 yards receiving, and then like 175 is like his low. Like that's how, like, it's just an unbelievable matchup. It's not, I mean, UNC is not like the worst team ever against their run. They're still really bad. But, the fact that he can come out of the backfield and catch passes, the fact that he made Virginia Tech look silly, some of those runs where he's jumping over a dude, sidestepping, then sprinting, and then cutting back, and he's getting to like the 2-yard line, that's just amazing. And UNC is, doesn't have the talent to do that to stop a guy like that. And I thought you used a really cool metaphor to describe UNC's defense. You can repeat it if you'd like.
I don't remember it.
It's how UNC's defense is like they're playing on ice skate rink and they're not wearing skates. I think it's a great
Dude,
way to say it.
watching him trying to tackle Kevin Parks, who's like not very agile, last week was pathetic. And now seeing them against Duke should be really funny. I really wanted to consider Gus Edwards strongly, but it's looking like the third player in that backfield, Joe Yearby, is going to be back this week. He was out last week, which is why Edwards got so much of the second string work when Miami pulls Duke out of the game. But so I mean, I don't expect Duke's workload to really decrease this week, but I expect his backup duties to kind of be a little more platoon, making it harder to roster Edwards. Which I mean, otherwise I'd really be liking him at 7,200, but I think that's a little tougher.
Yeah, Duke Johnson produces in limited touches to begin with, so I think even if you said 15 carries and 34 catches, he could still put up those numbers.
Right.
He had the huge game against Virginia Tech with 29 carries and 25 at the Duke game, but you're right, that really affects the backups more with Yearby being back. Tell you what, Gus Edwards looked really good against Virginia Tech. He had that long, I think it was like a 40 or 50-yard touchdown run. I think we both like Brett Kaya the Messiah for Miami, do we not?
Dude, it's against UNC.
You gotta like him. And when I wrote about him, it was this. Look, a freshman. He's gonna be playing at home. I believe his home numbers are much better, something like a 12-2 touchdown interception ratio at home. He's got a better completion percentage, more yardage, obviously, per game. I think it's like 254 compared to like 212. He's much better at home. A terrible defense. He has some bad stats in games just because they haven't pushed him. Like, look at the game against Virginia Tech. They did not try to challenge him offensively at all. It's like they just were like, all right, dude, just hand it left, hand it right, hand it left. There was no pressure on him.
New Carlos Williams information. The cops say that somebody says that he set up a pot deal that led to a robbery.
What does that even mean? Like,
I don't know. Dude, they're just making stuff up about this guy, but I'm loving it because it's more Dalvin Cook yards.
Let's see here, really. I mean, does that mean he was like an informant, or was that like he's just really dumb?
I don't know. I don't think he's too smart, but I think we already knew that.
Yeah, so Brad Kaya, we think he's going to have a good game. I don't think there's any way you roster him over Marquise Williams if you have the option.
No, I agree.
That's a crazy thing. I think Marquise Williams has got to be number 1 or number 2 quarterback here easily. I'm a number 1 guy, but maybe for you even, I would say number 2. I don't see a whole lot of other options here. Really quick, what Miami receivers are you looking at, if any?
I guess the one who's been hottest over the last few games has been Dorsett, right? I mean, he's very boomer bust, but it seems like he's been putting up more huge games than busts since he got healthy this year. I know Stacey Cooley was like the guy coming into the year that a lot of people like, but he's done absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think all these Miami guys are really boomer bust.
Right. Dorsett he's not too cheap either. He's 11 and change, which, I mean, with a guy with that low floor, he's probably my first option, but he's someone to consider.
Yeah, Dorsett's more of like a three-man league option. These Miami guys are too boomer bust. I just don't know which one Kaya's going to go to. I would guess Dorsett. Herb Waters is also an option. Clive Walford, who's had some really good games this season in terms of tight ends. He's priced appropriately. You can't really roster him with the way he just put up a dud last game. I just don't see a whole lot of options there besides Marquise, Kaya, and a super confident 17K Duke Johnston there. We talked about Switzer a little bit as well towards the end of your draft maybe. And then Dorsett is probably, like you said, the boom or bust, late guy if you want to take a chance there. Duke and Pitt, we see some cheap quarterbacks in this one. Is there any chance you roster Voidick at 14K or Boone as well at that same price?
At the prices they are, I think Voidick's the clear play, considering how much more they've gotten involved in the running game over the last 2-3 games. And he's got Tyler Boyd too, who, unlike Boone, Voidick actually uses his awesome receiver. Where Whereas Jameson Crowder basically might as well have not even been playing this year. It's really unfortunate.
Jamison Crowder, man, he came into the season like a stud, and
Dude,
he hasn't
he's
done.
so good, and they just I don't know I don't want to watch games because I'm sure it's just too sad to watch.
It has to be too sad to watch. I mean, he was so good last season, and he
Yeah,
hasn't done anything.
right.
I'm with you. I like Voidick. He's got the better weapons. Connor might vulture a touchdown or two, but at least he's got Tyler Boyd to make plays for him. I would say, hey, Manasseh Garner is a solid option, but like in terms of talent, he's got a lot of things going for him. But Voidick really is a one receiver looking guy. He looks at Boyd, and then he looks to throw it in the flats, or he looks to run. That's like the complexity of that offense right now is just hand it off to Connor, throw it to Boyd. So I
Yeah.
really like Connor here. I think probably my second favorite running back of all these guys in terms of maybe just top end of points. Dalvin Cook is going to crush value, but Connor might end the game with 150 yards and 3 touchdowns.
He's so expensive though. It's gonna be really tough to fit Connor in unless you get like a couple. If you happen to get two of the 5K guys on your team that we talked about earlier, then I guess it becomes feasible. But even then, you're not gonna get a top quarterback if you're getting Connor.
Yeah, I think you might be able to sneak in a guy like Cook and a guy like Parker. Not too confident with that, but I think you can squeeze in at least. There's three of them. You could get two of them.
You can.
But if you can fit in a Connor, I think you fit him in. But I think Duke at 17K is the guy you look at there. Boyd, Connor, Voidick options there for Pitt. On the other side, Duke, I don't think Boone is an option. Jameson Crowder is not an option at the price. And then I just don't see any offensive talent amongst those other guys that makes me
No.
jump for him, right?
No, I mean, in terms of receivers on this slate, I know we haven't talked about the last game, but Parker's got to be the clear number one. I think Rashad Green probably gets. I mean, I think he's gonna have a huge game, so I'm fine paying up for him at 15. And then after that, I want Boyd at 12.
Yeah, I'm with you there, I think. This final game, I don't really see a whole lot of potential in this last game. This Virginia Tech Boston College game. You see, again, two quarterbacks at 15K, and I'll give you the same question. I think you're going to be on the same page as me here. Michael Brewer, Tyler Murphy, which quarterback do you want in this one? 15K.
It's got to be Murphy for similar reasons, just because like he breaks a 50-yard run every game. It's insane. And this is the same guy who was incompetent last year at Florida, who we talked so much trash on every chance we got this offseason. But I mean, he's good. He's effective. He always puts up fantasy points. I don't know if he's a top option against Virginia Tech, but like if the other quarterbacks are off the board that I like, and it's between him, Voidick, Boone, and I think it's got to be Murphy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer this quick question, it's for sure Murphy over Brewer. There's doubt that Brewer would have even started. That he is starting, but there was that question about that earlier in the week. I don't mind Murphy at all. Like you said, he breaks the runs. I saw him play that Florida-Georgia game, and I'll tell you what, there's no way you could have guessed how he played there that he'd be playing like this year. And I'll even bring this up. Voidick had a very good game on the ground against Virginia Tech a couple weeks ago. Murphy is a much more talented runner. Okay, he's just as good of a passer. I don't think either of them are really too talented through the air, but I think Murphy could end the game with his typical just under 100 yards rushing when he really gets it going, just because he can break two runs and be almost there. So I like Murphy at 15K in the grand scheme of things. Their running back is John Hilliman, and we get ourselves one of our other big 5K options. How much do you like Hilliman against Virginia Tech?
For 5K, man, this slate is so interesting because of there's studs who are priced high. And then there's clear value plays like Hillman and the other three we talked about at 5K. So these drafts are going to definitely be a little off the wall. But Hillman, Do they still kind of bring Willis and the other running backs into play too, or is it just a Hillman show at this point? It seems like they've been annoyingly like not giving him early carries and then kind of just getting him involved later in games. I don't know if that's not the trend anymore, but I mean, regardless, he's a great play at 5K.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how he gets his carries. I know he's had 20 carries in 4 of his last 5. I know
Right,
he's a
he always
touchdown
gets the carries
machine.
at some point.
Yeah, and maybe it's better that they wait and they give him the carries at the end. But this Virginia Tech defense, I wrote about it the other day, really bad lately against the run. We saw Miami tear him up. We saw Pittsburgh with their dual threat quarterback Boydick and Connor do really well against him. Even North Carolina ran for over 4 yards a carry. Georgia Tech obviously runs well against anybody. I like him at 5K. I would have liked him up to probably 11K.
Maybe even a little more than that, dude. He's been very consistent. And
Touchdown machine for him. And honestly, if you have Murphy and Hilleman, you're going to get a lot of rushing yards, and you're going to pretty much guarantee yourself 2 touchdowns, I feel like, on the grounds. Not to go along with whatever Murphy gets through the air. On the other side, I don't think you can roster Michael Brewer. It's just a rough situation for him passing. Cam Phillips is one of the better producing receivers for him. He's expensive. I can't touch him at almost 12K. Isaiah Ford, I guess, is an option, but not too excited about that play. But, if you need a receiver at 9K, there's a guy there. And Marshawn Williams at 9K. Talk a little bit about Marshawn Williams at 9K against Boston College.
Come on, he's your boy. I'll let you talk about him.
Dude, I love Marshawn Williams, but this is a terrible matchup for him. I only condone him where he is like close to minimum price. I like him on DraftKings. He's decent for me on FanDuel, I think, and I think he's really cheap on draft day. But I mean, you're looking at a guy here. His prospects are he's going against a team that's like top 10 in the country against the run. They've shut down USC for under a yard per carry, but it's worth noting Buck Allen went for like 300 receiving yards that game. So that's an odd one. But, to me, this is like a guy you're using. If you use him, you like the fact that he's got like the Nick Chubb 20-plus carries going for him because they've seen Coleman and Caleb, and it's been ugly. He's a big running back coming off a good game against Miami. He should be getting 80 to 90% of the goal line carries. So that is why you like him. That's why I say at minimum price at like 6, 7K, it's 6. That's the ideal price for me would be 6, 7K. But at 9K, it's tough. He's a late round pick for me on Fantasy Elite. A little bit better on other sites, but on Fantasy Elite, not really into him a whole lot there.
I agree. I mean, we talked about 5 other running backs who are either better values or just all around better than him in this slate. Granted, every team's going to have 2, so at least 4 running backs are going off the board, but you're probably not looking at him until like round 6, 7, 8 at least in an elite draft.
Yeah, it's just whatever way you can work in certain guys to your lineup, whatever you need. Maybe you miss on some of those big guys and you need a running back there. But let's move on to this other slate, the 10:31 Prime. I believe that starts on Friday nights.
How is Zach not gonna? These are such Zach teams. Like Memphis is his hometown club. Could we not get one of the ECU posse to come on and talk about ECU?
I could ask them to, but I feel we would get like some bad information because
right, and they're probably already pre-gaming this game anyway.
Yeah, if they're smart, they're pre-gaming already for it. Let's start it off with this East Carolina game. I talked to my guy Bones, aka finally learned his name due to him buying my article. I learned it. Justin. Justin says pretty much right now they got that 3 running back group. I believe it's Grayson, Hairston, and Breon Allen are the 3 guys. Breon Allen is probably the most dynamic of the 3. He's the most talented of the 3, but for some reason he doesn't get a ton of he gets just as much as everybody else. And I think he didn't even start last game.
Right.
So be aware of that. 17K, that's unplayable for me there for him. that whole running back situation is unplayable for me. It depends, I guess, on how the rest of this slate turns up, but I don't imagine myself looking at those guys. Grayson is at 9.7K. That's too much for me. And then Hairston is he's 5K. So Hairston's the 5K guy. It would take a whole lot of.
Dude.
What's that?
It's tough to it could just be a wasted roster spot.
Yeah, it'd have to be a really tough.
Maybe if you allocate all your money by the time you get to your 8th and 9th picks, and you're just looking for fillers until you maybe reassess a little later on, pop him there. But you're not going to want to plan to get him probably.
Yeah, and this is the team you want the passing game for. Justin Hardy, you want Isaiah Jones, Cam Worthy, Shane Carden, where he's not too expensive. He's too expensive in this one, 32K, just too high for me.
Yeah.
Hardy at 18K, do you think he's too expensive there?
No, dude, I think that's fine, and I'll probably spend an early round pick on him because he's good for 10 and 150 and a score every game. He's great.
He's been so good lately. I think his last 3 games total is 32 catches, 300-something yards, 4 touchdowns. The guy's been really, really good. They want to get him that record for the most catches in college ever. So they're really pushing him here, and it's kind of been honestly he's 22 catches away. So he's not far at all. And they have 4 games.
Got the Broyles record?
I think that's the Ryan Broyles record. Yeah. So I think he's a great option there at 18K. Isaiah Jones and Cam Worthy at 11K are appropriately priced, in my opinion. Cam Worthy went for 7 catches, 130 yards last game. If that passing game is going, you need to see Cam Worthy's going to see 10 to 15 targets if they throw it 50 times. That's just every time they do it, that's what happens. But his numbers get really thin when they only throw it 30 to 40 times. Obviously, less passes, but I think part of it is Carden knows he needs to be more effective. He needs to throw to his best guys, so he sticks to just Jones and Hardy. What are your thoughts on the two, Jones and Worthy there? Do you like one over the other?
They are almost ideally priced, like you were saying. I mean, identically priced. Jones just has been more consistent throughout the year. Granted, that's because Worthy was suspended or whatever, but I think it's difficult to make an argument for taking Worthy over Jones. No, it just seems safer to take Jones.
I think Jones is a safe play, and I think Worthy is the guy you would get more upside with.
Okay.
Sure, Jones. I think Jones is that almost like the Williams Rhodes without the carry guy. He gets the screens sometimes. He gets the 10-yard outs and the slants, but Worthy runs more of those deeper routes. I remember he just missed a deep ball last week, and he's had some nice post catches recently. If I had to pick one, I'd probably lean on Cam Worthy just a little bit more against Temple.
Okay.
Especially because he's going to be that third guy. He might see the third cornerback for Temple. They might put their second guy on Jones, knowing that in the slot he's going to be needed there for him. Who are some of these? I've talked a bunch about this game. Who are some of these Temple guys, if any, maybe an ECU guy I missed that you like in this one?
Who did on Temple? I'm trying to search for his name, and I know I'm spelling it wrong, so I'm never going to find it.
Is it Deloach?
No, the running back, his name's Jalel something, and all he does is catch 80-yard passes.
Jahad Thomas?
Yeah, that's him.
Jahad Thomas, man, I should have spoken up to my Twitter followers because a couple guys were talking about Jahad Thomas, and they were including me in the conversation, and I was just they were talking about him this max carry guy who's going to get most of the carries with some PPR in him, and I'm just I don't think he's getting Temple is not a running team.
No, and they kind of spread the carries around. Kenneth Harper, who's 5K on this, seems like he's the vet, so he's gonna get 10 touches every week and always do pretty much nothing with them. I think they have. It doesn't look like Thomas is actually in the slate, but yeah, he's I mean, I guess he's not really worth discussing if he's not in here. It seems like they just use him on gadget wheel routes and stuff. He's not going to be a workhorse anyway. But regardless, how do you feel about your boy PJ?
PJ. God, PJ. talking about my college fantasy, like my dynasty team, he has done little to nothing for me, and I almost named my team after him.
It's unfortunate because it's not like the offense has been bad. They score touchdowns. It's just like they do it a bunch of different ways. Like different guys get carries. It doesn't seem like he's running as much as he was last year, and they've scored on special teams defense. So like it just hasn't been what you ideally look for in your fantasy quarterback, where he's scoring all the touchdowns.
Yeah, needless to say, I'm not rostering PJ Walker this week. Not doing it. Fitzpatrick, man, he's had he's been until two games ago, he was super consistent, like 4 catches, 80 yards, a touchdown every single week, and
Right.
he's pretty much done nothing in the last 2 games. So at 11K, I can't really get behind that one. Roman DeLoach at tight end, he's like their goal line, get the touchdown guy. Can't really get behind him at 8K for a tight end there. I don't really see a whole lot of potential on this Temple side, and just barely any potential on ECU just because of how Cardin's so expensive. I think you look at really just Hardy, Worthy, and Jones.
Right.
And I guess if you super, super need a 5K, Hairston at the running back position might be like a complete shot in the dark there for you. Moving on to the Cincinnati game, I think we see a little bit of some interesting things here. Gunnar Kiel, is he playing or is he not? Because I'm leaning towards, I think they already pretty much said he's out for this one.
Really, I thought it looked like he was going to play.
See, that's why it's super interesting because we can't figure it out on our own.
But he's played each of the last 2 weeks and hasn't finished games, right? So at 28K, you're looking if he's probable to start against Tulane.
Yeah, what got confused me was a guy tweeted, I remember it exactly now that I see it. It says, this Tulane line is screaming Gunnar Kiel is not playing. They don't believe he's coming back. But he is playing. I was wrong. I was so ready to jump on Munchie. So ready, but it's not going to be happening. Gunnar Kiel at 28K, is that a guy you could consider against Tulane?
Yeah, I guess you can consider him, but it's just his floor's got to be reasonably low considering it seems like he's been dinged up with rib injuries or knocked out of games for rib injuries for the past month.
Yeah, it's like the C.J. Brown effect right now.
Right. It's not like he's 18K and you'd be okay with him going for 250 and 2. Like to justify 28K, that portion of your budget, you're really hoping for like 400, 450. One of those September Gunnar Kiel games that it seems like we haven't seen really lately.
We haven't seen it in a while. The 28K is too much. You could be hit and be out in the first quarter, and that's just too much for me. And honestly, Tulane's pass defense isn't too terrible. I don't think Justin Holman was a guy I talked about a little bit. He struggled immensely against Tulane. Tulane's defense is not as bad as some people think, but they're going to put up some points. But I think that's just too risky at 28K.
So I think we're in agreement so far on these quarterbacks. But if we look down the slate more, it's incredibly tough to find 2 quarterbacks that you really love, factoring in price and expected output.
Well,
what are your top 2 when you factor everything in on the slate?
Let's just go straight to the quarterbacks here. I think my number 1 quarterback's Paxton Lynch.
Okay.
I think that a little tough luck. His tight end scored a touchdown on the ground last week. I think a couple times
you had him in your tournament games, didn't you?
I had him everywhere. I had him in every single one, and I even think I had him on my quick card as well.
Well done.
I like him again this week. I don't know what his price is on Fantasy League. We'll see that in a second. But
anyway, continue.
Paxton Lynch is the quarterback I like the most. I think just a couple times they caught the receiver short of the goal line, and then the running backs kind of vultured him there. I think Justin Holman is my number 2 against UConn. Not as great a price here as he will be on other sites, but I think just production, I think he's been good enough in some of these recent games, and he did struggle against Tulane, but UConn is not as good as they are defensively. And then I think it gets really iffy. Diego Chandler Whitmer, who's coming off a good game, Do you go off of Dane Evans? Dane Evans here against Memphis and hope that this game is high scoring? Do you?
I know you have strong feelings, and I know you already made a statement, but I'll give you a chance to go back on your word, and you can admit that you were wrong, and P.J. Walker is a great play in the slate.
I think you have to consider P.J. Walker now. It's terrible. I am extremely embarrassed to say it because of what everybody else has looked at. I seriously was about to, before you interrupted me, thank you. I was going to say, do you just punt and go Munchie go and expect Gunnar Kiel to get taken out in the second quarter? These quarterback, which, by the way, you might have to do because there's no other options.
Yeah. You don't really want Nick Munch. Wimmer had a nice view, which makes PJ look pretty good.
PJ Walker, man. I would probably rank it then Lynch, Holman, Walker, Whitmer, and then Munchie Legault.
All right.
It's tough, though. Those quarterbacks are definitely tough. To get to the Cincinnati game, back to it, Shaq Washington coming off a huge game last weekend. Do you see another better game? I'm not saying 10, 12 catches, but I'm saying 7 catches with a good amount of yards and finally reaching the end zone. Maybe I think he did it last time, but reaching the end zone on a more consistent basis.
I think you have to consider him. It's not just been this one game. Like, he's kind of been getting it going for the last 2 or 3, I think. And I mean, Cincinnati's definitely a tough team to bank their their receivers on and say, yes, I agree. One of them. It's probably Washington. He's not exorbitantly priced. He's right in that Hardy, Worthy, Fitzpatrick kind of area at 10-7. Not saying I would like him more than not Hardy, sorry, Jones, Worthy. I don't think I want him above Jones or Worthy, but he's not a bad option.
No, I think he's probably the safest of the Cincinnati receivers. Sure, he doesn't have the upside as like a Chris Moore who's at 5K, but at least he gives you the safeness of knowing 5 to 6 to 7 catches, 50 yards. I feel like, which is kind of lame to say that, but Chris Moore went for like nothing against SMU.
What about last week? He did nothing last week too.
Didn't do anything last week. McKay has been unproductive in a bunch of games. Max Morrison is like a 4th receiver. I'm looking at these guys and I'm thinking, hey, I want Washington, and then I'm looking at Chris Moore at the end of my draft if I really, really need the help. Any running backs here for Cincinnati?
Yeah, dude. Who's the guy who ran for like 1,000 yards last week?
It was a question to set you up, Andrew.
I can't remember his name.
His name was Rod Moore.
No, it wasn't.
Rod Moore was the guy against SMU. So who was the guy last week?
Yeah, last week they played. They didn't play SMU.
Are they just rotating amazing running backs against them, or what? You fired me up now, Andrew. Let me look this up.
All right, you can tell we're on the same page.
Against Boone.
Yeah.
Mike Boone, freshman from Florida. Should have seen that. Of course,
5'2".
212 carries or 212 yards, and his previous high was 18 and then 14.
It's 5K, man.
But what does that mean, though? Like, why is Cincinnati going from like Abernathy at the beginning of the year to Rod Moore to Mike Boone? What are they doing?
I don't know. I'm not. I probably should have tried to look into it before the show, but I mean, at 5K, Boone's definitely someone to consider. That being said, you'd probably want to do more research than I did for this and check out the Bearcats beat writer. I think his name's Tom Grossman. Grossman's the one that I think I follow, and he's always putting up pretty good material. That being said, I mean, it's 5K for a guy who ran for 200 yards last week.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is I think you need to see the depth chart. I don't know as much research as we could have possibly done to give you the exactly correct information here. Rod Moore is Rodriguez Moore. He's got 10 carries or more in 4 straight. And then we see Mike Boone here with that 19-carry game. and Rod had 10 carries in that last game. So they clearly gave him the ball more because they liked what they were seeing. I would roll whoever's starting, and I'd probably say it's got to be Mike Boone. I can't imagine it not being Mike Boone.
Right.
At 5K, they're a good option. Run and bad against the pass. So is there anyone from Tulane you're looking at? Is it Sherman Beatty, a guy that you're considering?
Dude, we need Zach for these kind of teams. Like I don't care about Tulane, but I mean I understand Cincinnati's terrible against the pass, and some of us rostered Garrett Christchurch, or however you say it, from SMU against him, and we saw how well that worked out. So I think placing too much emphasis on Cincinnati's terrible pass defense would probably come back to haunt you. Since it's Nick Montana and he's not very good. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I would look at just Sherman Beatty, and that's it, man. I don't know if I could consider anyone from that Tulane. Justin Shackelford, isn't he a guy from this team? He's crazy. Yep, Justin Shackelford. He's a receiver for them. I know he's had like a game or two of awesomeness, but Beatty's double-digit carries in like 5 straight. He's got I mean, it's sad that I'm saying this. He's got 100 yards a couple weeks ago against Rutgers. He's got catches in every game this year. Like, that's what we're going with here. I mean, at that price, I think his price is what, 8K? That's a low-end option for me, lower in the draft option for me. Other than that, not a whole lot here on this Tulane side of the ball. Moving on to Tulsa, Memphis. Paxton Lynch, I said, was my number 1 quarterback. Really, just a great talent there. He's played very well this year. He kind of got a little vultured last week. I think he has the potential for 300 yards again and 3 touchdowns. Tulsa is a really bad passing defense. I think Justin Holman had a really good game against them. I think Sam Richardson. Did they play Sam Richardson? He had a big game against him as well.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So a great option there, Paxton Lynch. And the guys you're looking at in that passing attack would be Tevin Jones, Alan Cross at tight end. I think that's a guy you could consider just because of the way these cheap options are. And the other receiver, what is his name? God, where is it? Fun fact, if you look up Tyler Kudlodny, tight end for Memphis, he played baseball with me, and he decided he wanted to go back to school, and he just decided he was going to get a scholarship to play football. So he got it playing at Memphis. Guy was a third baseman. He was like 6'2", strong, fast as crazy, and I think they balled him.
Is he in the elite system?
He is. Check him out. 5K, Tyler Kudlodny.
Does he play?
No, he doesn't play. I forgot that he was on the team, and then I looked him up stats-wise. He's got nothing.
That's so pretty cool.
He's the funny thing is he's like a 23 or 24-year-old sophomore. If he went out of high school, he got drafted by the Orioles, played there for 4 or 5 years, played with me that one season. So he's like 24 years old, 25 years old, and he's a sophomore. So cheating, pretty much. I don't see the other receiver I was thinking of, but Tulsa and Memphis-wise, which guys are you looking at here?
I'm assuming Zach is going to jump in to talk about his boy right now, but if he doesn't, I mean, when you're talking Tulsa, it's all about Kevon Lucas, right?
It's all Kevon Lucas, man. Dane Evans is decent because Kevon Lucas allows him to be.
Right, and that being said, Evans is pretty much unrosterable at his price.
Yeah.
Considering the other options aren't great, but like I'm not paying up $23K for Dane Evans.
Yeah, but what happens if you snatch up Paxton Lynch and then he gets the other 2 quarterbacks we talked about, PJ Walker and Holman? Like, do you punt or do you go Dane Evans?
I'm not taking Dane Evans.
So you're punting. You're going Munchie.
I'm probably going Munchie.
You gotta go Munchie. If not, just because of the name.
Yeah.
You're right. Kevon Lucas. Go ahead. You want to talk more about him?
Yeah. Who would you rather? Would you rather take Lucas or Hardy?
Hardy.
Agreed. But
I mean, to me,
I don't think it's to be. I mean, granted, I think we're both on the same page, but it's not inconceivable that Lucas puts up one of his monster games and justifies that price.
It could happen for sure. I don't think Memphis' defense is like stout, super stout, but I just think Hardy's. It's just so much safer to go Hardy.
Yeah, agreed.
Even if they were same price, I would still say Hardy.
Right. If I were to go Munchie, it would probably be to try and get Kevon Lucas and Hardy on my team.
Yeah, I think if you go Munchie, you have to think, you know what, I'd rather roster a 20K receiver and a 5K quarterback than a 20K quarterback and a 5K receiver.
Right. That being said,
By the way, which is not a dumb decision if it's going to be, if you can fit in Hardy because you went Munchie, that's much better than fitting in a 5K guy for Dane Evans.
yeah, it's fair. It's a great way of putting it.
Kieris Garrett has had some good games as well. Not a superstar, not a stud like Kevon Lucas, but for 6 point, I was surprised at 6.8K. I could see myself rostering him.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but it seems like there's. How much did you say he is?
6.8.
Yeah, I mean he's not a top option. I probably like a lot of the guys in the 10, 12 range more, but as you get down to the end of your draft, if you're looking for some cheaper options, I mean that's pretty solid. All right, I think we've spent too much time in this game. Let's move on.
1 second.
Last game looks terrible too, though.
It's definitely terrible. 1 second here. I want to make sure Kieris Garrett is playing. 1, 2. His birthday is the same as mine, so you have to like Kieris Garrett. Let's see here. Kieris Garrett did not play against. Let's see here. Who did he not play against? USF. It was a. Does it say? It doesn't say. Anyways, when he does play, he's had some very serviceable games, some 5 catches, 50 yards type games. I don't mind him at all there. And then running back situation, they just mixed a bunch of them up. I don't know who you would roll with. We really do need Zach here. I don't know if any of these guys is really.
True. We didn't mention Brandon Hayes, but he's really cheap and probably a pretty good option now.
I think Brandon, he is cheap. But Jarvis Cooper is the one that had the big game, but I think that was more later in the game when they were up a bunch. I think
right, but that being said, Cooper did also get the goal line carries, so I think they're both in play.
Yeah, I think both are in play. I just think
Cooper's only 5K, so
yeah, Cooper, you're expecting some goal line carries, and Hayes to be more of the yardage guy. UCF and UConn. Ullman is the guy here. Pay attention to Ronell Hall, a guy that I've written about and liked recently. He left last game with an injury, so make sure he's playing if you decide to roster him at 5K. Brashard Perriman had a really big game with Hall out. Do you think that he could repeat that if Hall is out again?
I do. That being said, UCF does spread it around a lot. Even though they don't throw the ball that often, it doesn't seem like it's tough to really bank on a guy in their lineup. I want J.J. Wharton to be good so badly, but they just don't throw him the ball. So, but I mean, if I were to own any of these guys, it's probably going to be Perryman.
Yeah, I think you can expect a little bit better of a game if Hall is out. I mean, Perriman.
He's the deep threat there.
He's the deep threat, and he did very well with him out. So,
yeah,
not a bad option there. Looking on the other side of things, well, I'm not going to talk about William Stanback at 12K. I'm just going to announce that right now. That guy is a consistent 2 yards a carry guy with 30 carries a game. It's outrageous that he still plays. It's like they want to lose. It's like they're going for draft picks.
I really think that it's mostly the offensive line. He looked legitimately awesome last year, and he did have a foot injury to start the year. So I think it's a combination of the offensive line, and he's probably still got foot problems.
All right, so
I won't listen to your hate.
Oh, there's a lot of hate over here. Deshaun Fox is the UConn guy that had a big game for him last week, making Chandler Whitmer look good. Zach's boy. I think didn't Zach mention him?
I wasn't here last week.
He mentioned him a week or 2 or 3 ago, just because that's such a Zach thing to do. Name a guy like Deshaun Fox. So he's an option there. Just really, besides that, this is an ugly game. Justin Holman obviously is my favorite play here, but
the over-under should not be more than 38 points for this game.
It's ugly. It's gonna be ugly. I have a question, random question. It might even be a part of the Saturday slate. So let's just act like it is. That way we can seem justified to talk about it here. How many points does Michigan's terrible offense score against Indiana this week?
Indiana, 27.
27. So you're looking at 3, 4 touchdowns here. So,
Probably two on defense.
oh really? You're throwing out 2 on defense on me right now?
Dude, Indiana, that quarterback's good for a couple picks now. What's his name? Xander Diamond.
Diamond? Yeah. I had this debate a little bit on Twitter the other day. I mean, Rutgers' defense is terrible, and Michigan scored like 16 points against them, or 10 points. Penn State's defense is pretty good. They scored 10 points. Like, Michigan State's defense is pretty good. They scored 11 points. We have a common theme here. They can't score more than 11 or 10 points. It makes
You're
I mean, but let's say for some reason Michigan scores 4 touchdowns. What? Like, who does that? Like, who is doing that on Michigan, you think?
Funches.
Funches, man. But he's going to have an appealing price this weekend. But anyways, I think we're all done here, man. Our work is done. I think we can agree, though. ACC slate, super sexy. The other slate, super degen.
Agreed.
I think a lot of them, both of them, will be very fun. I'm going to challenge some people. If a couple people here, if you're on chat, send me your name in the chat on Fantasy Elite, and I'll do a draft with you tonight. And winner for this gets a free quick card, one of my cheat sheets for next week, just for fun. And we'll play a free game and do that. Just a couple of you guys here to thank you for playing or for watching. Otherwise, we will be back next week. Likely, I will be gone Friday, going to a certain cocktail party that is outdoors. And Andrew will be crying all weekend, wishing he was with me.
It's true.
So, appreciate everybody coming on and watching us. Expect us back next week, if maybe Saturday morning, if these guys are feeling up to it. If not, next Wednesday night, as always. Appreciate you coming on, and we will see you guys pretty soon.